I think we'll call to order, and then I'll read my script. Is there a motion to call to order?
Yes.
I make a motion that we call to order.
Okay.
A second motion.
I'm sorry, who was that, Jen?
That was Mary.
That was Mary second.
Who made the motion?
Paula started the motion, Mary seconded it.
Okay.
Yep. Very good.
Okay. As a preliminary matter, this is Matt Toth, chair of the Auburn Public Library Board of Trustees. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name,
Yes.
please respond in the affirmative. Suzette Dowd?
Yes.
Jennifer Lee Shea?
Yes.
Paula Melican?
Yes.
Mary Catherine DeCourcy?
Yes.
Nan Johnson? Nan, are you on? Okay. The APL says, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Jean Collins?
Yes.
David Wood?
Yes.
Molly Hustler, I'm sorry. No. Okay.
Yes.
Yes? Okay. And we have Chris Hugo, the cable TV manager. I know
just
that.
came on now.
Okay.
Dan just came on.
Hello.
Hi.
Here she is.
Can I confirm? Okay. Good. Is Julie Jacobson on, town manager? No. Is town council Vasquez on? No. Okay. They're going to be on. I'm just not sure when. Dan, I can't
Dan, your
see you.
microphone is on. We can't see you.
No, I can't. I don't know. All right, try this. No. To share your screen. Am I a presenter?
No, you just have to put on your
There
camera.
I am. How about
There
that?
you
Turn
are.
your camera.
Okay, almost.
Share my all.
Your microphone is on, but your camera needs to be on.
I can see myself.
I'll let you work
Talking.
on that, and I'll read the rest of this script, okay?
Okay.
Good evening. This open meeting of the Auburn Public Library Board of Trustees is being conducted remotely, consistent with the Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth given the outbreak of the COVID-19. In order to mitigate the transmission of the virus and reduce the risk of COVID-19 illness, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the Governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of the public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allow public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation. This meeting will not feature public comment. Even if members of the public do provide comment, participants are advised that people may be listening who do not provide comment, and those persons are not required to identify. For this meeting, Auburn Public Library Board of Trustees convened by the GoToMeeting and posted on the town's website identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Television. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise.
It looks like all the rates are screwed up, right?
I'm sorry?
I'm going to call her and tell her that.
Matt, we just need everyone to mute their microphones because you're getting feeded back, and someone who's calling in has background noise, and that's what you're hearing.
I didn't hear that.
So Matt, we need everyone to mute their microphones.
I'm
Someone who's calling in and has
I'll have to get
background
on the
noise,
call.
that's what you're hearing. and we get an echo because we're all hearing you talk to us. So everyone should be muted but the person speaking.
That's right.
All right, we're going to turn to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on each item on the agenda. After anyone makes their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members. I'm not going to do that unless we find that we're all talking over each other. But if it's necessary, I might have to call on each person. For any response, Pete, please wait until the chair gives the floor to you. If members wish to engage in discussion with other members, please do that through the chair. Take the chair, identify yourself.
It looks like all the wages are based on 2%.
Matt, can you tell those on the phone to mute themselves,
So
please?
Appendix C and Appendix B.
Will anyone who's on the phone please mute yourself because we're getting feedback? Thank you. Finally, each vote taken at this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote.
I just need the wage charts based on 3%. I can get them on the phone now.
If technical difficulties arise,
On
we'll
the
have to fix
appendixes,
the meeting while attempts are made to resolve these. Please keep accurate note of any disconnections and reconnection of members. Okay, the first item on the agenda
So
is
if you look at the MOU, it
the
refers to
minutes
the
from
appendixes
January 15th.
on number 4 and number 2. Yeah. They sent to me, but they weren't updated. They're just old appendixes.
You hear that, can't you?
Yes,
Okay.
the three
All right, let's
callers
have,
you did.
okay. The meeting for January 15, the meeting minutes, is there a motion? Anyone make a motion to accept the minutes? Was that Paula?
Mix-up was, it says.
I make a motion, or I second the
Excuse
motion.
me, I have a comment about the minutes. I'm sorry, my microphone wasn't on when I spoke up the first
Not
time.
yet. No, I'm just now getting a motion for those January 15 minutes. Paula made the motion
And
and
that's what I-
Suzette seconded it. Okay, now, before we vote, we're open for any kind of discussion on the minutes from January 15th.
So I'm looking here at the statement read by the chair, and I would like some qualification, revision for a couple of things that are mentioned here.
That was the statement I read.
In the second paragraph, it starts, I think we have a clear understanding. I think we have a clear understanding that no current job would be shifted, so that should be no job. The word current shouldn't be in there because the concerns were about all jobs, not just the current jobs.
But that's what I said. I mean, it's what I said.
I don't know
So I
that
can't.
months
what I
later it
said.
would be, well, that's not accurate. And the part
that's
about
what I
not
said,
talking
yeah.
about union positions was really all positions. So I don't know that, 2 months later, revising the minutes here when there's a discussion about
We're
it,
not
because there
revising
wasn't a
the minutes.
discussion.
We're not
These
revising
are
them.
inaccurate. These are
This is the statement
inaccurate
I read.
statements. But it's an accurate statement, and I'm asking for a clarification on that.
And what is the inaccurate statement again, please, Jean?
It says in the second paragraph down towards the end, I think we have a clear understanding that no current job would be shifted to non-union volunteers. The word current shouldn't be in there because we're discussing all jobs, because there's no, first of all, it's not under the purview of the board, but it shouldn't say
We're
no
talking
current.
about- but
The
we're
word current
talking
should
about
be
anyone that's in the union.
all positions. Because down here it
But all
says we should
positions
add
are
that
not
we're not talking about union positions. So maybe just to clarify, we're talking about all library positions, not just union positions.
Well, we can make, I mean, somebody can, if they want to, can make a motion on that. I'm not going to change what I said. That's exactly what I meant, and I thought it was pretty clear. But if somebody wants to make a motion to change that, and there's a second, you can vote on that. Thank you, Dean. I don't have a motion on that. So that is what I said, and that's what I said, June.
Then I would like maybe some adjustment to the minutes here saying that I spoke up to clarify that context. This was presented several months after the board meetings, so I think it's hard for anybody. Well, that's my opinion, so I think that should be.
What is the problem with the word current?
Because we're talking about, the contention has been about all positions, and it shouldn't just say current positions.
No, it has to do with union positions, Gene. We were talking
It had to
about
do with all positions. No positions are under the purview of the board. No positions.
It doesn't matter. We were talking about not having an impact on any union position. So that's all.
I'm just saying, so
you're
change it or
interpreting
not change it,
than it was meant.
then I would just like my interpretation included in the minutes for tonight.
Well, for tonight's meeting, that'll be fine. And I don't know what you can send me what your interpretation of that is.
All it is to take out the word current, because we weren't talking just about current positions.
Unbelievable.
No, we were talking about what was happening right now. And we'll put that in the minutes. I'm not going to take any more time on that tonight.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have, Ben, in order to be able to discuss this, do we have a motion on the strategic plan? Oh, I'm sorry. I want to go to the next minutes. Any other discussion on the January 15th minutes? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor? I have to do a roll call on this. Suzette? Yes or no?
You're muted.
Yes.
Suzette?
Yes.
Yes.
You say yes? Okay.
Yes.
Nan?
Yes.
Paula? Jennifer?
Yes.
Okay. Mary?
Yes.
Okay. There are no abstentions then, or negative vote. Passed unanimously. Motion on March 11th minutes. Do I have a motion on March 11th minutes?
A motion to approve.
All of them we're going to talk about.
Mary?
She said
Second.
they-
Yes, Mary.
just after,
That would be Suzette did the second. Okay.
Yep.
Any discussion on those minutes?
Let's finish our business with them.
Okay.
Yes.
Take a
Somebody's
vote
going
on
to
those.
bring up, though, how we're going to ratify. If you want to do it.
Okay, that's a different meeting. For these minutes, then, I'm going to take a vote. Suzette?
Yes.
Okay. Nan?
Yes.
Okay. Paula?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Jen? Okay. Mary?
Yes.
Okay. I identified everyone earlier. I should add now that Town Manager Julie Jacobson is with us, as well as Town Council Demascus. Okay, so those minutes are completed. The next item on the agenda is the strategic plan. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Auburn Public Library Strategic Plan fiscal years 2021 to 2025, including appendices A through F. Is there a second?
Is there a second?
I'll second. I second, Mary.
The library
Who was the
director,
second on that? I'm sorry.
That was on the original.
I'm sorry, I missed who the second was.
The library director requests some input here.
Wait a second. I don't have the second on that, please.
The second.
I
We have
move-
several seconds.
Matt,
Was that Mary? Or Nan?
Yep, Matt. Yep,
Nan, okay.
both of us. Yep.
Okay, so now we have a discussion on that. I would like to say a few things before I have some things to add to the discussion. Just to be clear on the strategic plan, the only thing different from last week's meeting until you received the new updated copy was the change on page 8 that to add monthly after each monthly meeting. And that was to clarify that there'd be a report about the strategic plan each monthly meeting. So it shouldn't be every single meeting. It's just on a regular scheduled meeting. On the Appendix B, the community and library profile, the only change on
Everybody
that
should be on.
was on page 4.
Mr. Chairman, could someone block out the radio or TV in the background? It's making it difficult to hear you.
There is no TV in the
All of
background.
those who have called in that are still unmuted.
We'll use a table similar to what you saw, but it will be reflective of the 3%.
Caller 2 is not muted
Okay.
and is putting the background noise on the call.
Yeah, Jody, are you on the phone? Okay, yeah, if you could send it to us, and then we'll have to caucus again, take another look at it.
No, we don't have the 3% table done now, but Stacy will work on that and get it's the same table. But
I don't know what's happening.
Well, you said, are you changing the language in the MOU?
Matt,
Chris?
I can make a suggestion. I agree.
All
I
right,
can
but there'll
see
be
on
language
the
in here about the
screen.
3%?
It's caller
you
1
know-
and caller 2.
right now.
All right,
I'm-
all right, just if you could give us a
Do
couple
you
of
have
minutes,
the
then we'll
ability,
be
Matt, to
back.
mute them?
Thanks.
I have no control over the microphone.
Okay.
I was trying to reach Chris.
Deleted it when we first started, so I apologize.
I don't have the
Yes,
phone.
it's definitely coming from caller,
Unmuted.
Caller 2?
caller number 2. It sounds like it could be, it may be somebody in the steel workers, I just based on the conversation I'm overhearing, and their phone needs to be muted. They just muted.
Okay,
Yeah,
very
just
good.
muted. Okay.
Caller
So-
2 has muted. I would just, again, advise to follow up on the chair. I don't know who was on this. I can't see it either, Matt. But everybody should be muting their phones, including caller 1 and caller 4. Who,
I
I
agree.
don't know who they are, but they need to mute.
I'm going to mute them.
All right, caller
That's
4
caller
just
4.
muted. And I would mute number 1.
I don't see where that is.
Okay, if you
Number
go
1.
under participants on your top
Okay,
right.
that's muted as well.
Okay, so you're good. So everybody is muted. That should get rid of the background. And then as they want to talk, they'll have to unmute or you'll have to unmute them.
Yeah, I have no idea who that is. And the people who are part of this group are all visually available now, except for Dee.
Yeah, I think what happened, I can tell you, Dee has called in, so he is one of the calls, but he is muted.
Okay.
And then, again, because it's a public meeting, you never know who's calling in. It does happen. People call in, but it looks like, from what I can see, Matt, it looks like everybody is muted. It needs to be, and they'll just have to unmute when it's time for them to speak. Indeed, there is an opportunity.
Okay, thank you. In Appendix B, the only change that was made was on page 4 to be clear about what year the 90,000 circulation was by 1960. But you have that on your copy that you were sent this week. Then there is, which was original Appendix D, which was the strategic planning interview feedback. That entire appendix is removed from the public document and it will be put into the internal document. And the reason for that is pretty, the concern was the number of negative comments If we took out the negative comments and we took out all the positive comments, there wouldn't be much left. So what we've done, in talking with Barbara, she felt that that was a reasonable compromise to make that an internal document rather than the external public document. Now in Appendix F, current Appendix F that you got this week, I don't know if you want me to go over what went out of that. It would have to do with some of the issues relating to staffing. Some of those issues were general things that came up in many, many different places. So we removed things that could have created tensions. That's the best way I can put that. And that was on page 10, and also on page 10, the hiring and staffing needs. We took out some of the specialty skills that would be more identifiable. There weren't too many. I'm sorry?
Dan's not on mute, that's all. He's Dan. Matt.
I don't understand where that's coming from now, Julian.
That's coming from
Dan.
No, Nan is not talking.
Oh, okay. Is there any background, Nan?
It is. Can she mute her line?
Okay, as long as maybe there's a TV someplace. Okay, there's nothing now.
Not in this room.
Okay, so now those are the changes that were made on page 10. And on page 12, improve governance relationships, we remove that entire section and provide additional professional development on page 12, remove that entire section. Those things were all already given, they are in the internal document. He knows that they're there. Julie knows that they're there. That's for internal conversation with Julie and me. So those were removed. That's the only.
Matt, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, if I can speak to, just to reiterate some of what you're saying and just to clarify. So the concerns with those sections, as Matt said, there are a couple of things. This was not a management study, and this was not a staffing study. This is a strategic plan that looks at the future of the library, takes into account what we want to see, what the community is looking for moving forward. To include things like that is a concern. It ties into some of the union issues that are on later, but most importantly, it doesn't fall within the purview of a strategic plan to be even discussing those types of things. The strategic plan is supposed to be getting input from the community as to what the needs are of the library as a whole. It's not supposed to talk about staffing. So I even have a concern about having all of Appendix F in, because Appendix F does have other things in it that are internal and raw data. And I would say that in conversations that I had with Labor Council, who's on the phone, he also had a concern about Appendix F just in general, Matt. But definitely, as you said, the comments about staffing and relationships with board, those are not part of the strategic plan, which is why we had such a concern about them being in there. Dee, if you don't mind, Matt, if I don't want to speak for Labor Council, if Dee is on the line, he could certainly speak to it.
We have removed those items, and I understand that. I do think, though, any strategic plan, when you're talking to people and they give information, they're going to talk about staffing and management. And so that's why some of those issues remain, but those things that you and I had talked about, Julie, and I had talked about with Barbara, most those things are basically out. So, but the integrity of the process ought to at least indicate that there were concerns about certain kinds of positions that people wanted. It doesn't matter, I guess, whether them or not, but they did want them, and they talked about them, so that's why they're there. But most of that has been removed. Mary, you wanted to be recognized?
Yes, I just wanted to, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Matt, can you hear me? Sorry, there's a little bit of feedback.
There is a little bit of buzz.
Please mute Nan's line.
You did?
Could you please mute Nan's line? There we go.
There we go.
I just did.
Yes, Matt, can you hear me okay?
Right.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, I wanted to speak on behalf of our comments that I made in our March 11th meeting. I was very, very insistent that in terms of staffing, people should be trained to be able to respond to questions that the patrons have. And I'm concerned that in terms of erasing certain features of the recommendations in the document, I was concerned about how many times that I and other patrons have gone to the desk to get support, and staff didn't seem to know how to support us in terms of technology. So I just wanted to speak to that because I am a public educator, so I'm pretty adept at my technological skills, but my concern was really thinking about people from the populations of the senior citizens in town, as well as the disabled members of our community. I was concerned that I couldn't get help, and I brought that to the attention of the board. And I was concerned that perhaps there was a need for more professional development amongst the staff to be able to be more sensitive to respond to patrons' requests for assistance.
I would like to speak to that, Mr. Chair. The director would like to
just answer that question. Okay, as soon as I finish this, Mary, those concerns have been raised. The material that we collected from the community is available as an internal document for Julie and Jean to be able to go through. So those issues have been documented. So that is, now it's up to everyone who's involved, who's in charge, to be able to make sure that if that happens again, that it has not been addressed. Jean, you wanted to add something?
Yes, first of all, there are other platforms for reporting any issues with staff. They don't belong in an open meeting. Second of all, during that meeting, I said that I would look into that, which I did thoroughly, and found no credibility whatsoever for those accusations. So for this to be in a public meeting, first of all, does not belong there. If there's an issue with a staff member, then you are more than welcome to contact the director directly. I've certainly never refused to see anybody or listen to your concerns. It's very disconcerting that you would put that out there and make an accusation against staff in an open meeting, to which, again, there was no credibility. I did look into that very thoroughly, and I sent that information to Mary. And so I would certainly like this said is that I object very strenuously, first of all, and now it's being brought up again in an open meeting. It's not the forum for discrediting library staff.
Matt, can I respond to that?
Sure. Yes.
May I respond to that?
Yes, can, Mary.
Yeah, Jean, I guess the issue that I have, it's not about being discrediting staff. I think that's a loaded comment. I think in the March 11th meeting, the question was how much support the staff are getting to be professionally developed. And I think the language of attacking staff is very opportunistic and manipulative. I was concerned that prior to being a member of the board, and I brought this up very clearly, that I asked for assistance probably 6 times, between the time of 2/14 and before I was on the board in 2/19. When I brought that information up, I wasn't bringing it up to put anyone down, but I was bringing it up to bring about a need for professional development, as we all have in our professional careers. And what I was concerned about was that on Friday, March 13th, starting at 7:31 in the morning, I got a number of emails from you challenging me about my position. The issue was not that I was. Let me finish. Please let me finish. Please let me finish. The issue is, as a member of the board or a member of the community, I should be given a certain amount of respect. And if I voice something that in a meeting, regardless of whether I'm a citizen or a board member, my expectation is that there's a level of respect. What I interpreted, forgive me, what I interpreted on Friday morning, March 13th, and I was only home because we had our schools called off due to the COVID-19 virus. I got a number of emails from you that I perceived to be very provocative in terms of engaging me in some sort of conflict. And I had to respond 4 times to you to tell you that my energy and my focus is on unity, it's on professional development, and it's on respect for the board. So my impressions and my experiences and my observations since I've been on this board for a year have been that all the members of the board have been very respectful, but I've observed that there's been many, many challenges to members of the board, including myself, that are not appropriate. So
Mary,
again,
I would like to
hold a
comment,
second.
please.
Yes, just a second, please. I'm going to let this, Jane has a final comment. This does not need to go any further to try to resolve for the minutes that we're trying to approve. But Jane, what we're going to say?
First of all, I really don't know what she's referring to. And so when you throw something out there and I have no frame of reference for what it is, except for providing feedback for the accusation that she made. Other than that, I don't know what she's referring to. Second of all, an open meeting is an open opportunity to berate the library director, and I find that very disrespectful.
okay,
And perhaps town council would maybe weigh in because it's not the purview of the board to do that anyway.
all right.
Well, I guess it is possible when there are concerns from the public. There were at least 3 board members that had the same experience that Mary did. Nobody wanted to get into that. And I think we'll have to figure out another way to be able to deal with this outside of a board meeting. So for right now, that's enough on that particular topic. Is there anything else in the minutes that anyone raises a concern about, or are we ready to vote? Okay, let's vote then.
I guess I only have one question.
Yes?
Yeah, my only question is there any thing that would be inappropriate for me to forward those email chain to Julie Jacobson from March 13th to end the conversation?
No.
Okay, thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. For the March, I'm sorry. Jeez. Back to the strategic plan. I got distracted on that. At any rate, we made those changes. We removed that information from the strategic plan. We took out that original Appendix B on all the interviews. I think what we have left is some idea that this community, as it gave its feedback on a plan, wasn't a management plan, it wasn't a staffing plan, it was a strategic plan where people were able to give input about the library. We've taken out anything for the external report that, or at least as far as I'm concerned, and I don't know about the rest of the board, cleans that part of the strategic plan up.
I would like
Do we
to
have any
speak
other
to this.
concern? I'm sorry?
Excuse me, I thought you finished speaking. I definitely have some comments about the strategic plan, but I thought you were finished. I'm sorry.
I didn't finish. What was
Excuse me.
Gene?
I've been speaking with a number of members of the MBLC for several weeks now because I did have some concerns. I think our basic report is sound. It's strong. It includes all the elements that are required. Speaking to the MBLC, they said it's very rare for people to include comments, the raw data, and they recognize strongly suggest that you don't include them, that this should be more streamlined, it should be quantitative data. And it's very rare for libraries to include all of that raw data. So my suggestion and strong recommendation, because this is supposed to be a collaborative effort, is that all comments that are raw data are removed from the entire document. And I have a lot of comments here directly from the MBLC, but before I go down that route, I thought that I would request that the town manager and town council weigh in on this subject.
So before they do, I will say that I've also spent a great deal of time with MBLC, plus reviewing huge numbers of strategic plans that do include comments. But it doesn't have to do that. I know Jane has asked Julie and Dee to comment.
This is Dean Moskis. I'd like to just offer my comments that, and I'm able now to get in to the meeting. My understanding, the strategic plan was a plan to discuss the services and needs of the library. It was not a management study. It was not a staffing study of the library and how it's organized. Also, we need to be sensitive to the fact that the employees are in a bargaining unit, and therefore we have to be sensitive to that fact. I concur with the director, I believe also the town manager, is that raw data not pertaining to services or needs should not be published in this report. If there are things there that the trustees would like the library to look at, they should be referred to the director and the town manager, who are the ones responsible for collective bargaining and the ones responsible for personnel administration. And that would make it better for the morale, and it would be better for the trustees, so that we could focus on what we need to look in the future of the library.
Julie, did you want to? I didn't know if you were wanting to say something or not.
Julie, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm going to have to unmute you, Julie. Okay, sorry.
She's still muted.
There we go. Thank you. I'm trying to keep any background noise out on my end as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Attorney Moskis. So again, our concern is, and it is a later agenda item, but it does tie into this. Our concern is that we don't want to create any further personnel problems, either with the union or non-union employees. So I believe where the MBLC is coming from, the library director and Dee Moskis, not to be repetitive, but I need to, is that when you take individual comments, they're all great comments, and they're great comments to share with us, but they're not comments that should be in the strategic plan. They should just be given to us to look at so we know what the comments are. And there's a difference between including them in a public document and giving them to me as the appointing authority, or Jean as the library director, because we are responsible for employees. We're responsible for professional development. So we do want to hear what was said, but as far as including it in the strategic plan is talking about goals for the library for the future. And it's not talking about the staffing or the personnel issues, because that doesn't fall under the purview of the board. So I think we're trying to be really cautious to not cross a line between what the strategic plan should say and what you should be telling us privately if you have concerns. So I believe that's where D is coming from with the inclusion of Appendix F. There are some comments still in there
that are just going to trigger additional employee concerns that really aren't necessary to trigger. The plan itself is a good document. It's a really strong document. The goals are great. We're looking forward to working to implement those goals. Jean and I will work together on some strategies to get there. I think the goals were excellent. The strategies under the goals were excellent, but it's that Appendix F that is potentially going to continue to cause some employee issues that isn't necessary to be caused to include it in a public document.
I find that interesting, Julie, because we removed an entire appendix that had huge amounts of comment. And I understood what the concerns were, and I understood why that should be an internal document rather than external. And we cut out so much of this Appendix F. What is that a person in the community made a comment that you need a children's librarian or to hire like you have those? They're very general statements. They don't deal with anybody in the library other than what people would like to see. And those comments, the children's librarian came up from 12 different people. I mean, it's not like there were just one or two people that made that comment. We removed almost anything where there was one comment. So the little bit that's in here is pretty clean from what was there in the beginning, which was a lot of raw data. These are comments that people made in their, whether they wrote them on the survey, whether they did something else. But the point is, and we're not putting out the raw data from the survey, that we're not doing that. So there's very little here. I don't know where people could take offense by some of the suggestions that were made by people in the community. I understand that we're trying to be extremely cautious after those two letters, but you know, there's something between caution and being sort of dishonest about what the process was. It's true, it wasn't the management and staffing. It was, what do you think about our library? What do you think we ought to do in the future? What would you like to see? And so people said they'd like to see a children's librarian. We took out all the stuff that went along with it, all the details about that, and we're left with just, we need a children's librarian. So it's not like we've made some terrible comment about human beings that are working in the library. We talked about what we'd like to see in the future. We took out anything on the governance issue at all. There are huge issues with governance. We took those all out. So, I mean, you know, we took out about 15 to 20 pages of what was originally there. So I understand your concern, but there's also something about feeling some kind of integrity to the process that we went through.
Can I ask a
anybody
question?
Else on the board?
I would like to ask a question from the attorney or from Julie or whoever knows the answer to this. Is the Board of Trustees able to set expectations of having librarians in a library?
The board does not have personnel jurisdiction, and the personnel aspects of the library are exclusively under the jurisdiction of the appointing authority, which is the town manager, and the director, who is the agent of the town manager relative to personnel matters. And therefore,
So we're not allowed to say we want librarians in a library. Is that what you're saying?
Obviously you have to have librarians in the library, and you have librarians now in the library. You're talking about what the educational level that is in the library, and that's an issue that should be referred to the town manager and the director. It's not an issue that the board has jurisdiction over.
Okay, Jean, how many librarians do we have in the library?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
You said we have librarians. How many librarians do we have in the library?
Well, first of all, I don't really like to discuss credentials and qualifications at a board meeting because you can find it out from the website. But we do have 2 librarians. We in fact have what it's just not called a children's librarian, which is kind of a dated term. We have a children's resources administrator. And that person is a librarian, and that position has been there for several years. So it's all moot anyways, because it's not called a children's librarian, it's an expanded position of a children's librarian. And we do have two
with the
MLS
normal credentials, with the normal credentials of an MLS or MLIS.
Again, I want to jump in here, and I know Dee will jump in. It is not under the purview to discuss the credentials of the employees. That is something that so that is the concern, Matt.
Expectation? Is it all right if we set that expectation that we'd like to have educated librarians?
Labor Council is saying that it is not under the purview of the board to talk about the credentials of the employees or what types of educational levels you'd like to have the employees have. That falls under the appointing authority and the library director. And that's the concern about some of the comments that are in Appendix F, because it goes right back to what the board's expectation is for a children's librarian. So, and I'm going to turn it back to Dee, but that is an area we really need to be careful about. And I know it may be frustrating for the board because you want to weigh in on that, but it's not within the board.
This matter.
In 1 second, I want to say the comments in Appendix F are comments from a survey that we reached out to the community. So there's a difference between the board members, the Board of Trustees, asking a question, which I respect and understand your comments on, are not under the purview of the Board of Trustees regarding the professional development, the education, the hiring, understood. But the comments in that appendix are related to a survey we conducted with the community. And the community does have a right to express their thoughts and opinions around what they think the library should have. And the strategic plan has the right to include that information publicly, because it is a disservice for us to not allow community comments to be incorporated into a plan that we then reached out to them to get feedback on, and then hide that information from the community.
Right on.
What we're talking about, one is how conversations may have been pertaining to comments board members may or may not have made, and one is about a survey that was done with the community, and the community members are allowed to express their opinions on those pieces. So I just want to differentiate. There are two paths, and we seem to keep bringing them under one hub, and I just want to make sure it's clear there are two distinct ways in which this needs to be addressed. Board actions, the strategic plan, and the survey are separate.
Well, let me just make a comment here. I'm not sure that the strategic plan was charged with doing that, to get inquiries for the public. And if they did, those inquiries should be sent to the town manager and the director, because they're the ones that have the jurisdiction. And secondly, we're dealing with a collective bargaining issue. The qualifications of librarians are matters of collective bargaining. It's something we have to deal with the union. And so this is a sensitive area. And I don't disagree that the public should have the right to express their opinions, but those expressions should be made to the people that have the jurisdiction. And that's what I think there's a concern about, is that it's not being brought to the attention of, sent to the appointing authority or sent to the director.
Dee, this is Meto. Dee, do you understand how incredibly difficult it is for an elected board of trustees of the library to be silent about the fact that they'd like to see people who have an MLIS or MLS, a librarian's degree in the library, offering services? I mean, it's difficult not to say that. It is true that we're going to make, in our next meeting, we'll talk about that. It's an action plan that we're not in the strategic plan, where we will make that clear to Julie what the board would like to have. We know that the decision will be hers to make, the way the governance is set up. But do you realize how incredibly impossible that is? for a board of trustees not to even weigh in on what might be useful and helpful in the Auburn Public Library, and we're supposed to be the 6 elected people representing the community?
Well, I appreciate the frustrations, but the law sets up a collective bargaining process. And that collective bargaining process has to be respected in how it operates. And if a body has no jurisdiction and gets involved in collective bargaining matters, that could expose the town to liability. So we need to be very careful how we approach these subject matters.
What I'm saying is, we're not talking about any union members. We're not asking for a job description of the union members. We're talking about the people that are typically, unless it's changed, that are outside the union. And that's the positions that we're talking about. So it's not the ones that are in the collective bargaining unit with the town. And I evidently there must be some cross messaging with that, or else I'm missing something. We're not even talking about the union members.
Well, if you're talking about the administration, similarly, we don't have the same legal sensitivity in the context of collective bargaining, but you also have the question of jurisdiction, and certainly you can convey to the director and the town manager your thoughts, but that should be done on an individual basis with a discussion through the chair, through the manager, and to the director. Again, you need to be concerned about morale and about how that's functioning. But you need to have boundaries here, and you need to have balance between being respectful of the boundaries, but at the same time allowing good communications from the board to the director and the manager. And I don't think either the director or the manager wants to say they don't want to hear from your insights, but it's how they are conveyed to them, and how and recognition that input is views, and it's not being spoken of as in the board of libraries saying we want this or we want that.
Steve, I was not at the March meeting. I did not know what took place at that piece. So I just want to clarify one thing. I think, and please someone correct me if I'm wrong, that part of this concern from the collective bargaining unit stemmed from the survey and the community feedback. And because as we reviewed the community feedback and our survey results, in order to create the strategic plan, conversations may have taken place in which that conversation nature of a position was discussed because of a feedback comment made by a community member. And I think that's where we're on this slippery slope today of what are we doing, what is appropriate, what is not appropriate for the board, and where there's a lot of confusion still by potentially those public attendees today, by potentially myself, again, I wasn't there in March, that is leading that confusion, because the board didn't come forth and say, we want to change all of these things. We sat in a conversation and said, these are the results from the community. Let's walk through this and figure out how we create our goals for the next 5 years. And there has been that contention around a comment or comments made in those surveys from community members. It's not been avoiding sharing with the town. It's not saying we find fault as a board with the library staff. It's the way in which conversations were held because of this survey. And the strategic plan's goal was to ask the community, what do you feel about the library? How can we help it grow? What are you looking for?
I'm going to speak up and try to be conciliatory, because we've gone down this route before. And I think that we have solved the problem, hopefully more than temporarily, by making these comments into an internal document. So except for continuing to get advice, which I don't mind, I think at this point, I think we're on a good path. We shouldn't solicit comments about labor or positions within the workforce. And if we do get them unsolicited, they should be turned over to the town manager. And that's just the way it is. I don't think anything was done with any malice or any attempt to overstep our roles, but we have created a bit of a hornet's nest here, and I would like to hopefully move on.
I appreciate those comments. Thank you.
Any other comments before we move to vote on this?
I would like to make, since I think it's critically important, and I don't believe the board wants to be out of compliance with the expectations of the MBLC either, and certainly I don't, neither does town manager or anybody. But I do have a number of comments here that are directly from them, and I would like for you to take them into consideration because they're really important that you look at the bigger picture here. These are direct comments from the heads of the MBLC. And I won't read them all because frankly there are quite a few. Rob Favini, Mara Tweedy, people at the MBLC.
Wait a minute, I can't
I
hear.
object.
I would like to read these comments. I think they're definitely pertinent to this discussion. This is in terms of.
Who said the comments, please, Steve?
I just told you two of the names, Rob Favini, Mara Tweedy.
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry. You said
Rob
Favini is one?
And his associate, Mara Tweedy. And I don't have the other one's two names, but at various times I've spoken with Liz Babbitt, Mary Rose Quinn, and other people to make sure that what the board wants and what the MBLC expects, and then our role and my role as the library director in a town where the library director does not report to the board, but reports to the town manager. And so we're in a little bit different situation. Whoops, I don't know where my, sorry, I lost my screen. We're in a different, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so we're in a different situation than most libraries. So I would like to read some of these comments. They're very insightful, and hopefully we'll put some of it into perspective. First of all, one of the things they said right off the bat a couple of times is it's not a good look. It's just not a good look to have raw data there. It's subjective. Of course, we want comments from the public. That's the point of doing surveys. Nobody ever said we don't want comments from the public. According to Rob Favini, and I will tell you this is exactly what he said, is most libraries do not submit the raw data, and they don't request that, nor do they expect it, nor do they encourage it, because it is just that raw data. You should be summarizing the raw data into a quantitative analysis and not including comments. You should make every effort to portray the town in a positive light. So by including these, sometimes they're negative, sometimes not. Overall, it's not a good look, as they said, and you're not including the town in a good light. I would add that I know the board wants to consider, fundraising. And once you put this up on the website, that's just like social media. It's there forever, and it's not fair to staff. It's certainly not fair to recruiting additional staff when they see negative comments. It looks like the library governance is disrespectful of them. And I, for one, will put a comment in here that I do not approve of this, of adding this comment. And because this is supposed to be a collaborative project, then I should have my say in here. It's consistent with other strategic plans. They have received very few of them that include raw data. And it's very unusual, not recommended. You should focus on the most important themes. And I think for this board, for what your concerns, are the building. And that would be certainly something, that would be one of the major themes that you want to consider. Some of the other ones, the strategic plan is not intended to be critical. And some of this does come through as critical. Even though you're not speaking to a specific person, any comments relevant to we should have this or should have that kind of implies that the current staff is incompetent or not exceeding expectations above the board. But the board doesn't have any purview on that anyways. They encourage you to look forward. Again, requesting how does this serve the future plan? And it doesn't. And additionally, With all the hardships libraries are facing, especially now with budget cuts, frozen budgets, losing staff, this is really not a good look, again, to have this as part of a strategic plan. And there are others, but hopefully I'm getting my point across about the very strong, I believe, very valid concerns that I have about any raw data being included in the strategic plan. It's just not appropriate.
Right. Well, Jean, I've spoken to those people as well. And I understand clearly what's important. And what is important to send in is the strategic plan. It does not require sending all the appendices that we did. That's a decision we can make even tonight. If we're going to do that, the MBLC cares only about the first 9 pages. That's all they care about. That's what they've made that clear. They are not afraid, at least the people I spoke to, which would include Bavini. I did not speak to Maura or to Liz, but there are things, of course, that I would like to see in the library. As soon as you say that, that doesn't mean that the library is no good now. It means I'd like to see this or that. And as far as I'm sorry that you don't think it's a good look. I have very strong feelings about it.
That was not, those weren't my words. Those are the words of the MBLC several times. It's not a good look.
You agreed with those. You said you agreed with those.
I definitely do agree with it. Yes.
Oh, okay, fine. So, okay. All right, well, thank you for that. Do we have any other comments?
I would like to make an additional comment, please. No. I know that the library director does not have a vote, so I strongly suggest, since this is a very significant issue for me, that perhaps we table this and try to come up with a compromise. And I think I would like to have the town manager or town council maybe to weigh in on this. I think there's definitely an opportunity to discuss a compromise. And in terms of the, the significant differences, I think that would be a reasonable next step to take.
Jean, I would normally have said, I appreciate your wanting to do that. We have worked on this for almost a year now. You've seen these documents. You've heard about these things. Every time we get to this point, there's been a suggestion to add more time, to do something different, to think differently. But there's no help in this process. But there's always that delay. And as far as I'm concerned, I would never vote for a delay. I would vote, I would think we can take, there's no reason that we don't need to send the appendices into MBLC anyway. It doesn't matter. So we don't have to do that. That's easy. Because they don't want it anyway. They don't care about the appendices. They're much more interested in an action plan than they are appendices. So at any rate,
motion on the table.
Are there any other comments, or does anybody else want to comment on Jean's concerns?
I want to move the vote. Let's vote now.
I agree.
All right. There's no further discussion, then we'll take the vote.
Yes.
Suzette?
Yes.
Nan? Paula?
Yeah,
Paula?
could you just tell us what we're voting on again, please?
Right.
To accept the strategic plan?
I'd like to make the motion to approve the Auburn Public Library Strategic Plan fiscal years 2021 to 2025, including appendices A to F.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Jen?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Matt? Yes. There's no need to call for any negative votes or abstinence. So the plan is passed.
Did we get a vote from Nan? Did Nan vote?
Who's that?
Did Nan Johnson vote?
Nan?
She's still muted.
Nan
Nan.
voted. I heard Nan say, Nan?
She's
Nan?
muted.
Okay.
Nan? All right.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, that takes care of that.
I have one additional comment, please. If I can find the right paper.
Yes, Jane.
I believe it is on page 8. Acknowledgements works closely with the library director, the library's 6-person board of trustees dedicated countless hours and so forth. This does not view as working closely with the library director when you won't even consider a compromise over something that I consider extremely important and extremely negative in terms of the morale of staff. You're putting this out here on social media, on a website, or maybe not, and it's not a good look. It really comes across as very negative. I would say when you're looking to ask for funds and people look at this, if that were me and you were asking me for funds, I would question whether I should provide funds to an organization that has comments like this in a strategic plan. The raw data does not belong. I would like that in the minutes. And Jen, if you like, I'll write this up so that you can have the right context of what I'm saying. I strongly disagree with this, and I'm very disappointed that the board refuses to even take another minute or another week after a year to find a compromise, because I think there is a potential for a compromise, and I'm very disturbed by the fact that the board is not listening to the library director or staff. The library board represents the community to the library, and the library staff to the community, and this does neither.
Matt, can I just suggest that I was just going to say, can you just make note of that and we can move on, please?
Yes, I will. And I think it's important to recognize that most of these documents have been available since December.
Yes.
The adjustments that have been made have all come primarily from the concerns of the library director and the town manager. Yes. And we've made huge changes in this, trying to be respectful of all of that. There has never been a time, Gene, where we have this conversation is over. I think that's the best thing to do with it. Let's move on to the second part of the meeting tonight, which has to do with both the union letters to the town manager and the job descriptions that were provided by Dee for the town manager and the board of trustees and the library director. So, Julie and Dee, this is your part.
Certainly, thanks, Matt. Through the chair, I sent to all the board of trustees copies of the letters that I received from the union, and I just want to make it known for the minutes that the union gave me permission and actually encouraged me to share them with you, so they're fully aware that you have both of those letters. As a result of the fact that those letters did come from a collective bargaining unit, I'm required to protect the town, and as part of that, I have to work with Labor Council, Dee Moscas, on this, as well as any other collective bargaining issue. This is just another one that we are dealing with right now, and it's important that we approach it carefully and thoughtfully with respect to the union members, as well as respect to the board. And the reason that I asked Dee to come is I thought it would be helpful, given what is in those letters and the concerns that the union members raised about comments made by the board, and to Jen's statement, yes, some of the strategic plan comments came from the community, but my understanding from reading these letters is the union is concerned about comments they heard from board members themselves, not from members of the community. So that's why I shared those letters with all of you and wanted to address it tonight. There are some parameters that I have to follow in my role, and I know it's different as elected officials. You are probably not subject to the same things that I'm required to do, but from my perspective, and to protect the town, as well as to be sensitive to the needs of our employees, and again, I would say union or non-union employees, because we respect all of them, but this is specific to this particular union. I'm going to turn it to Dee Moskis on behalf of the town, just as to how can we help this? How can we address this? How can we, to Paula's comment earlier, I think we all want to find a situation where we're working well with the employees, where we're working well with the director, you're working well with town administration, and clearly the union employees are feeling that that's not happening, and they're feeling that, for their perspective, it's a threat to their jobs or to their the respect that the board may have for them. So in order to address that, I thought maybe Dee Moskis could come and talk a little bit about the collective bargaining issues, what I'm supposed to do, what the director is supposed to do, and what the role of the board is.
Well, that's the reason I have drafted those responsibilities charts to assist us and to educate also the union as to the collective bargaining representatives that are for the town of Auburn. The representatives is the town manager under the statutes, and she does delegate from time to time the director, particularly the administration of the contract, to carry that out. So the director and the town manager are the agents for that. And the board under the Auburn Charter does not have the collective bargaining responsibilities for the town, and that we want to assure the union that the town is committed to promoting good relationships with the employees and a harmonious relationship with the employees, and that I appreciate the fact that at least there was an attempt to adjust the appendix, and I think that the town manager will assure the union that that Appendix F is not a document that's recognized as far as personnel matters are concerned, and that it's the position of the town manager and of the director which is important as to what comments are made about the employees. So that is what the approach we have to take with the union, and we wanted to make sure that it was understood what the persons who are authorized to speak for the town and the persons who the employees should be listening to as far as collective bargaining matters, personnel matters.
Thank you. Dee, one of the things, and I've already expressed this to Julie, what's in this letter is not necessarily true. I guess it doesn't really matter whether it's true or not. It has to be handled in some kind of a way. And I think it's really important. In any unit, you have job descriptions because there are different jobs, which is, and I guess we got ourselves in trouble because we were talking about not collective bargaining positions at all. We were talking about positions of librarians, and those require different credentials, a different background than library associate and those in the collective bargaining unit. We were not attending to that. So I don't know how that gets us in the middle of something. We weren't even talking about those jobs. We were talking about other positions. There's a second point to that, which all of a sudden has eluded me. I have no good excuse for that. It's just simply not here. But I know that was the one point was that, oh, and the other was the term seemed to get everybody completely upset was the term volunteer. So we decided at the last meeting, or I decided for myself, and I asked the rest of the board, never to use the term volunteer, because we're one of the few libraries who have the kind of structure that we have in terms of governance, and we're one of the, I guess, one or two libraries in the whole state that does not have volunteers. But we're never allowed to use that term again because somebody, I don't know who, decided that that was a threatening word. That was threatening to jobs.
Right.
So we won't ever use that term. So I tried to make that clear at one meeting, and it seemed to make it worse. We got a letter that was even more detailed about how incredibly disrespectful we were. And whether that was not anyone's intention on the board, nor did anyone say it in that kind of a way. It's very possible, and I understand that, Julie, and I talked about this, that people can interpret things in different ways. So we have to be very careful with what we say because of how that someone else hearing it might interpret it. Whether it's accurate or not is almost immaterial, it seems.
Yes.
And that's maybe Julie's job as the person who works with collective bargaining to help clarify that with the union membership. So I don't know what else to say about this letter. And how is it that you can't have a strategic plan, that you have to get permission for a strategic plan? I would never even consider that that's what I had to do as a board member,
Right.
to get permission,
Right.
or to be able to say that there are, I'm not saying that the people that are hired can't do a certain job, but you have job descriptions to define different competencies. And that's what I thought we were talking about. And that created a lot of problems and tension for Julie.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your comments, and I'm trying to be sensitive to, but even if it doesn't involve the collective bargaining unit, the administrator's job descriptions is not a matter for the board. The administrator's qualifications is not a matter for the board. Those items, which are personnel items, are under the jurisdiction of the appointing authority and under the director. Also, I think we need to be careful in using the word librarian. I represent a few libraries in the state, and the term librarian is a term that is used to apply to both college graduates and to the persons who have the MLS.
No.
And so that most libraries consider those who are college graduates to be librarians. They're not graduate librarians, they're not professional librarians, but they're still librarians. So the term librarian is a generic term, and I think that that's a sensitive term to use to say that the staff at the Auburn Library is they're not librarians, does create tensions with the bargaining unit. And so I think I would respectfully suggest that we avoid using that term, and we talk about staff and in that context.
There are two things with that, Dean. Number one, Gina has made it very clear that they are not called librarians. She's very specific and very clear that the library associates are not called librarians. They're called library associates and staff of the library. Secondly, would you really say that personnel in the school, I mean, you have teachers, you have teachers' aides, people. You can't call all those people teachers.
That's right.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I didn't hear. Could you repeat that, please?
I was thinking, yes. You know, in the library, we generally think of people that have certain qualifications. I've never heard that before, that librarians would be anybody with a college degree who works in a library would be called a librarian. I've never heard that before. But maybe that's true some places. But in schools where there are teachers and there are teacher aides, there's a clear distinction between those different roles. And you don't call everybody a teacher. They're called teachers' aides and teachers. And I don't think it's wrong to call people staff in the library and people who are librarians. I don't know that we need to spend a lot of time with that term, but it's a strange thing to me that you can't be called, a lawyer. If you're a lawyer, if you're a paralegal, you're not called a lawyer.
Right.
If you're a psychologist, you're not called You're not called a psychologist. That's a legal term, a psychologist, and so is a lawyer. You can't just, everybody that works in a law firm is a lawyer. And I think that's what we're trying to get at the library, that there are different roles and expectations. I understand what you're saying. We should not be talking about that at a meeting. But how do we get, I guess the only way we get that to Julie is by people privately having a conversation with me and me passing that on to Julie. That's really, I think, what you're saying I should do. Is that correct?
Right. I think that if their board members have those type of issues, that they should be referring that through the chair, because you represent the board, through the chair to the town manager for her consideration.
Okay. Well, we'll know that then. I know that we can't have 2 or 3 of us together, but I guess if people call me and tell me what concerns they have, then my job is to call Julie or write her and let her know.
Correct.
Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
I would just like to chime in a second and refer back to Paula's original comment that there was no malintent or distaste among board members. These conversations came up, right or wrong. We're learning and addressing those issues now and have been. That the strategic plan survey and community feedback led to discussions that have led to further concerns. And it was not an intent that the board was trying to say, we believe X, Y, and Z is the way the library should be staffed. It was through a review of community feedback that conversations led to this and had that piece. We have mitigated those concerns in regards to the appendix by redrafting that. Jean has expressed her concern. She doesn't approve of the final drafted piece. But we have worked together for over a year on this component, and it has been only tied to this moment based on those letters from strategic plan conversations. I think we all need to find a way to say, as Paula said, we're all here in support of this, and to move forward from that.
Yep, I'll say.
Because we keep going around in circles by constantly having these conversations, and instead of all of us, those a part of the board, those on the library staff, those public involved, whomever it may be, acknowledging this was here. We all recognize that it was interpreted as it was, and that was not our intent. And we apologize for that confusion and that misunderstanding and the fact that you feel that way.
I think the union and the employees appreciate that expression by Jennifer to us, and I think that will be noted.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other comment or?
You know what, Matt, I do. Matt, I do.
Go ahead.
Matt, can you hear me? Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that what I appreciate about this discourse that we've had tonight is that it resembles exactly board meetings in respect to the fact that I've observed nothing but impeccable respect from members of the Board of Trustees. Every single member has been professional and respectful and growth-minded in terms of every conversation that we've had, every debate we've had. But I'm concerned that there's such a clear tension between moving forward in a growth model with a library that has librarians. I mean, that's just common sense. And what appears to be this very stagnant attitude about, I have to say, I have to be completely frank, that it appears to be a lot of opposition and a lot of lack of flexible thinking. And I think as a member of the board and a member of the community, I love the library, but I've really gotten a different view since I've been on the board. And it hasn't been because board members have been inflexible. It's because the idea of growth has been a challenge. So I just want to challenge Julie Jacobson. We need to move forward. It's 2020. We need to move forward. And the idea of a lot of tactics to be barriers to growth is really not in the best interest of the town of Auburn. So that's all that I wanted to add.
Yeah, and I'm happy to respond through the chair. First of all, let's be clear about this. I was the one that asked the chairman and the board to initiate a strategic planning process. So as far as moving forward with growth, it was my idea. I think this is one of the things the board should have done 20 years ago. I'm thrilled the board took it on now. I also want to be clear, what we objected to was not the strategic plan, it was Appendix J, and it wasn't having Appendix J for my purposes, it was having Appendix J attached to the strategic plan. So I just want that to be clear. I approved the strategic plan. I like the goals and objectives that are in it. I thought it was good. I objected to having as well Appendix J included as an attachment to the plan. I believe it should have been given to me. I concur with our lead. I'm sorry, I can't hear.
The motion was only for appendices A through F. J was not included in that.
I'm sorry, then it was, I'm sorry, it was F.
Okay.
It was Appendix F. Thanks, Suzette. So that was my objection, was to including F in the strategic plan itself, not in giving it to me. So as far as moving forward, we are moving forward. That's why we have a strategic plan. The strategic plan is now giving, Mary, I'm not sure why you're laughing at it, but I'm trying to answer your question. But the strategic plan is to give us a guide for how we are going to move forward. How that is accomplished with regard to people's qualifications and skill set, that's up to the library director and the town manager, who are the appointing authorities. So while I do respect your opinions that you'd like to have certain degrees, I'd like you also to respect our opinion that when we put out ads for positions, we're choosing those people, whether they're union or not, it doesn't matter. We're choosing those employees who have the best qualifications to do the job. And in some cases, they do have an MLS, and in some cases, they do not. But recognize that even that the MBLC gives somebody 3 years to get an MLS when they're going into a director's position. So even a director isn't required to have an MLS until they've been there 3 years. So I think where we are open-minded is we're looking at new models of libraries. We've gone online, we've done a lot of things on the website, we've done a lot of new programs. I look at the programs 6 years ago and I look at what we have now, and it's incredible. I think in the last 6 years, the library's moved forward incredibly. The number of programs we offer are impressive. The fact that we're turning people away, it's too bad we have to, but we do. So I think we do have some great programs, Mary. And I think we do have a good, now we have a good plan to move forward. And again, I don't want them to be mistaken. We wanted the strategic plan, we asked for the strategic plan, and now we can use that as a model when we go forward for funding for various things. So I think it's an important document to have. I'm glad we have it. Again, my feelings on Appendix F, thank you for clarifying it, are truly because it should have been an internal document, and I think I made that clear from the beginning. But moving forward, we definitely are open-minded. We want to hear suggestions, but where we have to draw the line, we can't hear suggestions on qualifications and skills of individual employees. That's where we run into a problem from my perspective and from a personnel management perspective. But absolutely, I think, I'm hoping that this whole process will actually bring everyone together more, because now the focus should be less on who we have hired. The focus should be on how we're going to achieve the strategic planning objectives that you all voted on. And there's a lot of different ways to accomplish that. Part of that, all of that falls on town administration. So part of that is between Jean and I on how we're going to do it. But it becomes a budgetary issue. And I know I asked, and I appreciate you putting it in there, I asked for one paragraph in the beginning of the strategic plan to talk about COVID-19 and its impacts. I think we would be remiss if we didn't now look at this strategic plan and say what may have been a short-term goal may now become an intermediate goal or a long-term goal. Financially, we need to see where the town is on everything. So some of the goals may take longer to achieve, unfortunately, because of COVID-19. We don't know what the final financial impacts are on the town as a whole. I can tell you our revenues will be down. I don't know exactly how much, but just looking at the broad sense of how are we going to accomplish all this and how are we going to look forward, it's going to be a bit of a challenge to deal with the reduction in hotel motel tax, meals taxes, excise tax, and then just the inability of some people to pay their real estate taxes. So we know that we're in for some challenging times in this next fiscal year, as well as the following fiscal year. And I think as long as we all recognize that, keep in mind the long-term goal is still to get to where we want to be with the goals that you put forth, but recognizing it may not happen as quickly as we all anticipated when this process was undertaken last year. Last year, nobody even knew what COVID-19 was, and unfortunately, I wish none of us knew what it was today. It is a reality, and it is going to impact our budget. And just as importantly, I should mention, it's going to impact our operations. And by that, I mean, how do we operate our libraries, our senior centers, our town halls, to keep our employees safe and to keep the public safe? So we have to change the way we're going to operate physically. The physical aspects of our operation was something we never had to think about before, and now we do. We have to think about book drop-offs. How do we help the public access their materials while not spreading this virus amongst the public who are using the materials? So there's a lot of different nuances that unfortunately we didn't know we had even 2 months ago. You know, the last meeting I was at in January, COVID wasn't a word. I didn't know what COVID was then. And COVID is now something we all need to deal with. So I just want to keep that in mind as we look forward to the future. We have to maintain and we still have to move forward and try to implement all of the strategic goals and plans that are in that, but we have to recognize it's not going to happen as quickly as we thought, given the resources and given some of the physical barriers that we're all going to have to deal with COVID. You know, I look at town hall, how are we going to provide the services to the public out of town hall while keeping everybody safe? And it's just an enormous challenge. And I think that everyone working together, we can find some ways to address some of these issues. Libraries of today, libraries of pre-COVID are not going to be libraries of post-COVID. And I think the two most impacted municipal services ever to be impacted by this are going to be senior centers and libraries. And even the governor, you know, we're looking to the governor to give us some guidance on how to do that. But that is a huge challenge. These buildings bring in thousands and thousands of people on a weekly basis who are potentially spreading a disease that may not have a cure or a vaccination for a minimum of a year. So I think we all need to think the way we operated in January isn't going to be the way we operate now starting in June. So, you know, I'm happy to keep the board informed. I hear anything from the state on ideas and suggestions. Gina and I have been talking a lot about this. I know a lot of communities are even saying that their libraries are going to go back very gradually, probably even more gradually than other town departments. And I would also add in that that affects the senior center as well.
Julie, I appreciate your comments on COVID-19, and that is a reality, and there's no question about that. And I'm sure that there are going to be huge budget impacts, there's no question. But the one thing I would really, and I would argue very strongly, it is a shame to think that we would want to have a 3-year waiver for director of the Auburn Public Library because we didn't look to have somebody that actually had an agreement that would come. So I know that they allow 3 years, but those are mostly for little tiny libraries or places that are in such tough shape that they can't find personnel. And I'm hoping that we never revert to that as a possibility. I have to say that I can't. Yeah.
Excuse me, I would like to make a comment about that. The Worcester Public Library is looking for a director, and they have been for a while, and they don't require an MLS. They require somebody who can get it within 3 years. That's a city library. They've been going through library directors, and they are now, I don't know if the search is still open or not, but they don't require an MLS. They require somebody who can obtain it within 3 years. That's not a small library. And when speaking with MBLC, but you just mentioned that it was small libraries. It's not. Worcester Public is a large library. And they're looking for a new director and they don't require the MLS.
That's correct. They're looking for a manager. They're not looking for a librarian. They're looking for a manager. And the fact of the matter is they have lots of people who do have those degrees working in departments throughout that library. So it's not, they've had a lot of difficulty.
But I think, Matt, to answer your, I'm sorry, you got cut out. I apologize. Say it again, Matt. When you backed up, I couldn't hear you speaking.
What I said to Jane is that is a gigantic library and that they are looking for a manager of that place. They have not been able to keep library directors much more than 6 months, maybe a year. And so, but there are many, many other positions that require the educational background of a librarian, an MLS, an MLIS. Huge numbers of people in that library have degrees. The other thing is, so that was very true, that you might need a waiver, but I hope we're never that hard up that we need a waiver.
Well, and I would say that I don't want to speak about future library directors. We have a great library director now who hasn't. We're not really talking about future right now, but when we do, that is, again, that's a personnel matter. We're going to have to treat it sensitively. We're just not there right now. We have a library director. 5 years down the road, I don't know what the future of libraries holds as far as degrees and education. We'll have to see when that time comes. But right now, we have a library director. We're not talking about getting a library director. I think what we're talking about is. I
know that, but we've talked about the succession in 2 years, so. I guess I
was saying that in the context of an MLS isn't required of a library director anymore. Yes, it is encouraged, and we've always been fortunate to get a director with an MLS, and that would be our goal. But right now, that's not something we're even looking for because we have a director.
So I think we need to all just take a step back again and recognize we agree to disagree on those pieces. The board understands, recognizes, and will make every concerted effort to move forward without addressing staffing plans or personnel. And I would like to state now, if something were to come up, I don't think it's any intentional or aggressive to say we disagree with it. It's more likely, and I'm predicting the future, that it's a simple inquiry of trying to understand. But I think we all need to agree to disagree on whether or not we want what type or how type or whatever the case may be on anyone's side of how that things are staffed. The board doesn't have a role in it. We keep talking about it. It's not going to change that we don't have a role in it, and that if we have concerns or beliefs on that, we need to address them directly to you, Julie. And I think we all need to agree, back to Paula's original comments, we do want to continue to move the library forward in the best possible light. We all want to be supportive of that. Our intention was never to suggest otherwise to staff or board members or the public that was the case.
Thanks. The fact of the matter is, and this really has to be dealt with at Julie's level, I guess. This frustration that exists on the Board of Trustees is absolutely incredible. And it can't be that every single person who continues to have this frustration, we're not all wrong, we're not all bad people, we're not all incompetent. We seem to have a lot of trouble with the way the governance is set up here because it's easy. Julie, you know that in order for us to get many things done, we have to go right to you to ask to get it done, and then it gets done. Whether it was help on the strategic plan or lots of other things. It's just a terribly frustrating situation. And in some ways, it's really untenable, and maybe there's no outcome except for people to remain frustrated in trying to do what you think you're trying to do. Dee, you've got these things that we're supposed to be able to do. And in a way, it looks like we should be able to really have some input in what happens in the library. But it's very easy at a meeting to be told, oh, no, that's operational, or oh, no, we can't do that, or oh, no, we won't be able to do that. And it makes what you're suggesting we should do very difficult, if not impossible, unless we go to Julie to ask questions to be able, or to raise the questions about what we need. And that goes, I won't even get into it because it really sounds small, but even in the smallest little way, whether you're looking for a place for Board of Trustees to be able to put things when you can't have that in the library. You've got to go to Julie to say, do you think we can get space? It's just, this is a difficult situation, and maybe what we need to do is for Julie, you, and the board to get together and to really talk seriously about this.
I agree.
Because this frustration, and it leads to people resigning and leaving the board. We've had at least 2 people were in the case. And we need to do something about all these issues. And it's not online in this kind of a setting probably to do that. I don't really know how it can work with all the board members together with you and Julie. It may not be able to be done that way. I don't know. But it's something we need to figure out because this isn't working.
Well,
I'm glad that we got this investment. We're going to try to be ordinarily aware of any comments that we make that someone might be able to take as an offense or as a downputting statement or as something that's disrespectful. We really will think about that because I thought maybe in rare situations, I thought most of us had very good relationships with the people working in the library, and evidently that seems to be untrue, but I thought we did. So we're going to work on this. I don't know what else there is to say at tonight's meeting about these issues. I think you've written this out. The only thing I would say in the library director responsibility prepares the annual budget for the Board of Trustees, because we're supposed to be the group that holds out for the budget. That's what it says here. Makes recommendations on the library budget to the town manager. And I know that, we have the right to go to the town meeting. The finance committee and the town meeting to work on the budget. So we should know and have more information on the budget. It always seems to come up late, but there are things that we will work out on this. They're not simple, but we will. Anybody else have a comment or a question that they want to ask Julie or Dee?
I think we should move on.
Go any further because you're making some statements that are not, the perception is off. You've always been shown the budget. You see every single bill schedule. I answer questions about anything that's on the bill schedule. You see the budget usually before, after Julie and Ed see it, usually before Finance Committee. This year you scheduled a meeting and you did not include me on the agenda. And so I went to Finance Committee with the budget before then, which was approved, which I told you. And turns out there are some changes in the budget anyways, which are nothing to do with, they're for every budget. To make the assumption to the public that in the budget is incorrect. And as you have said many times, there's not much for us to do with the budget because we have to meet certain criteria for the state. And there's only a certain number of, you've said that several times in board meetings. So to make an implication that I'm sort of creating the budget without any interaction or without showing it to you is incorrect.
Okay.
What's the next item on the agenda?
Can I ask a question? Seeing as we've asked Labor Council to come, I would like to just ask him quickly. I know you all have what was sent out today, but it is a public meeting, and I think it's appropriate, Matt, for Dee to just quickly review the 3 documents that he gave you. And then I agree it warrants further conversation down the road, but how that happens is something we need to look at because as you said, you can't have a quorum and meet to discuss it without having a public meeting, but these are public issues. So if I could just ask Dee Moskos, because we did ask him to come this evening to talk about the roles and responsibilities, and anyone who is watching it doesn't have those documents. They will be part of the minutes because they were submitted, but I think it would be appropriate for Dee to at least just make a final comment on the different roles and responsibilities.
I tried to summarize in these 3 documents the different roles. We have 3 actors in the library service area for the town. I first would like to note we are operating under a town manager type of government where there's an integrated administrative branch. We do not have, when the charter came in, it repudiated the prior decentralized government that Auburn had. And what the charter did, it brought it, and it integrated, it has really followed the federal level, where you have an integrated executive branch with certain exceptions, but like we have in town, we have the school committee is autonomous, but other than the school committee, all the agencies in town are under the jurisdiction of the town manager. And so we have an integrated executive branch of government in Auburn. We have the library board, and the library board is a policy-making board. It's like a legislative body. It's not an administrative board. It's not an operational board. It's determined to determine the policies for the library, and I think the strategic plan will be helpful in that particular regard. So the library board does not get involved in personnel matters, does not get involved in collective bargaining matters, it does not get involved in staffing matters, dealing with the employees. That's a function of the town manager and the director. And then the third actor in this library system is the director. And the director is the professional in the library. She's responsible to the town manager for the administration of the library, for the operation of the library. She's also charged with keeping the board informed on what the activities are at the library and making recommendations to the board of policies and providing you with policy support so that you can perform your function of being, in effect, a legislative type of body. And she prepares the budget because it's in the town manager's budget now. It's not a budget of the library or a budget of the public works department or the police department. It's an executive budget. It's a budget of the town manager, and therefore his administrative department heads. She reports, and other department heads report directly to the town manager and provide the town manager with the information so she can create the executive budget. So if we look at this as a three actors in the system, all with a certain specific function, then we need to ensure there's proper communication of those three actors and cooperation and working together. I am outside counsel, and I'm impressed with our town manager and our dedication of our director, that they want to do the best for the library, and they want to work cooperatively with the Board of Trustees. They want to support the Board of Trustees in doing their function. And so that hopefully tonight's discussion will remove any type of tensions, and that with these charts that, be glad to later on, after you've had an opportunity to study them, if you have any questions on how it functions, I'd be glad, with the permission of the town manager, to give you further information. But it is these three, we're going to summarize. We have an integrated executive branch. We have a town manager that is the CEO of the government. That we have a board that's a quasi-legislative board that determines policy, and we have a director who runs the library on a day-to-day basis and administers the library for the town manager. And that this is the team. And Mr. Chairman, you're part of you're the leader of the team on your side, and we have the director on her side, and then we have the town manager who is to coordinate all the activities.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
I just have a comment.
Okay.
Yeah, that is, I completely support unity and having a team approach to approaching the needs set of the Auburn community. And it is my hope moving forward that we would have every meeting would demonstrate respect and unity. And in terms of the town manager's comment about me laughing, I don't know what that was, but nonetheless, I apologize if I had a facial expression that was interpreted as laughing. I'm all about the community and about the kids and about the seniors and the teenagers. And I love the language around team. And I would like to move forward as a team. So that's my final comment.
Anyone else? Well, thank you, Dee. I appreciate the work that you put into this evening. Julie, thank you. We're going to move on to the another agenda item.
Oh, gee.
Okay.
Hey, thank you. I'm sorry, I was muted. My apologies, I was muted. I just want to thank you. Definitely look forward to moving forward on this and starting the implementation of this, and also for just future discussions on how we're going to handle the whole COVID issue moving forward too, because that's definitely going to be an issue, which may require some additional library policies that we can talk about at a later date when we have more information. So thanks. I appreciate you having myself and Labor Council and all of your comments, Jennifer and Mary and Paula. So that I think we do need to move forward, and hopefully now we've got the tools in place to be able to do that. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you. Very good.
Good night.
Thank you, Dee.
Have a nice evening.
If you need me, if not, whatever you want. If you need me to stay, I'll stay.
No, I think the rest of the items, you're welcome to stay. It doesn't matter. It's fine. Because the rest of the items, we're going to go through those, I think, pretty quickly.
I'm going to depart. I appreciate everyone, and I wish everyone to be safe and well.
Thank you, Dee.
All right, thank you. We had on the next thing for us to do is that I'll call Ron Pavini probably tomorrow about giving the strategic plan to the MBLC. We'll do that tomorrow. I'll talk to him so that we can do that. I've talked to him before about that, but first I'm going to talk to Barbara because I want to have a final document that's clean. I think we got that, but we're going to get it. I was going to call your office, Julie, tomorrow to find out if there was any way to be able to print a number of copies that are bound up and bound some way that I think some of the materials from the town meeting. But I'll talk to Sharon about that so that we can have some available at the library.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Give the office a call and we'll work with you on whatever materials you may need. We've got, there are people there every day. We've got some staggered shifts, but we're in the office, so just call.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. And then the question of package and action plan that we talked about, we've written those up in a separate form. We meet at the June 3rd meeting to put together exactly what we want to send Julie. Because that's the path we're supposed to go through on tactics, to give those to Julie for her to consider, knowing that that's where implementation will eventually be expected or not. So that we're going to do June. Keep up on the trustee book and all copies that have come up. I'll have that ready for the June 3rd meeting. I don't know whether we'll have a place to meet, 6 feet apart or with masks or whatever. I have no idea. I'm planning right now on a virtual meeting, but I'll send all the materials that we have to work on. The director's report. Does anybody have any questions on the director's report?
Oh, geez, did I ever see?
Pardon me? I had that here. What could have ever happened to it? Just give me a minute, okay? Oh, here it is. Right in front of my face. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? I know there's some facility issues, work on technology. there may be changes. The budget is frozen, so there may be changes. And the programs that have taken place, virtual programs, the Auburn Cultural Counselor and the partnerships with them, and then other services in the community, and the bill schedule. I don't know, Nan, if you have anything on the... Nan, are you there?
Yes.
Nan? Oh, okay.
Yes,
I don't know
I
if you had a chance to see the bill. Okay, if you had a chance to see the bill schedule, if there's anything there. Any other comments on the director's report?
No,
Question?
there was a lot of expense for Overdrive, which is the ebook contract. And
Yeah.
I didn't know how long that was in effect. That's
All
What,
books
do you
are
have a
ebooks.
specific question? Do you have a specific question, Nan? I'm sure I could answer it.
How long does that contract allow? There was $800 or $1,000 increments.
Mhm. We saw in need, Overdrive is, Advantage is fairly new, maybe a year or so ago, where library directors have the opportunity to purchase books that are specifically go first to their patrons. This has been extremely well received, and our numbers, and I don't have them in front of me, but I can have them the next meeting if you'd like to see, if you'd like me to read them to you. We purchase the titles, they go to Auburn residents first. Certainly it's proven very valuable in this time of not being able to get physical books, and many patrons are reading many more ebooks. So that expense is perfectly, it's a very good expense. And this was the last time, because we were going to continue purchasing, but the budget has been frozen. So that will be it until probably the next
Right.
So.
Right. I have used Libby more than the Overdrive. Should I do the Overdrive and more books would be available to me as an Auburn resident?
You know, I'm going to, if Molly's still there, I'm going to have Molly, would you mind speaking to this? Molly's our tech expert with the Overdrive. Thank you, Molly.
Yep. The books that are available through Libby and Overdrive are the same set of books. You don't get any more from one or the other. It's just two different options for the app that you use.
Okay. Because I've had several on hold, you know, and I'm number 45, so I'm wondering if the Overdrive was more appropriate.
No, you'd be on the same waiting list on either app.
Books much quicker than Overdrive.
Molly and I look at the reports all the time. We look to see if there's one or two holds on something, if there's a trend of something, then we purchase additional titles. Or sometimes books have only one loan option. Some of the publishers are now opening them up so that there can be more than one loan. I think they went from 3 to 10 for some of them, but it's kind of all over the map, and those decisions are made at the systems office. But Molly and I look at these all the time. She's great at running these reports, and we look to see which one's bestseller on a print, and then we add that to the electronic resources as well. So we're definitely, on top of it.
What will happen then with the budget frozen? Are you not able to order more books when the subscription runs out?
Well, it's not really a subscription so much as how many we want to order. It's not subscription based like a magazine. So yes, the budget has been frozen. The budget will most likely continue to be frozen right through this fiscal year. I don't know, maybe into next year as well. So that's all departments, certainly not just the library. So because we have been building this up over the last year, we're actually in pretty good shape with it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Can I ask a question related to the same? Yeah, I have a question related to the same thing. I'm wondering if we can explore other options in terms of availability of books, programs that have books. You know, we talked about Libby and Overdrive, but I've looked for a number of books and I have not been able to find them in that particular site or warehouse, for the lack of a better way to say it. Have we looked into other, like for instance, just naturally, I'm an English teacher. I've looked into When We Were Puerto Rican. I've looked into a lot of Toni Morrison's works, and I have not been able to find, James Baldwin for that matter, I haven't been able to find a real variety. So my question, going back to Nan's question, is how can we expand the availability of text for those of us that really, really read a great deal?
Well, that would be part of the strategic plan, as the Board of Trustees is expected to be part of collection development, and that's how you would go about that. And again, that's part of a strategic plan, so it's not something I could put in overnight. I will say that we're very attentive to requests from patrons. We have an ongoing list, and what patrons request are pretty much always ordered, regardless if we have 100 people wanting it or just one. So, or we can usually purchase books out of the network. And Molly, again, she is the one who does those. So it's very rare that we cannot get a book that a patron wants. And I don't recall seeing any requests necessarily from you, but those go through Molly. And so there's no reason. Again, if it's a collection development issue, that is something that I've mentioned many times, that the Board of Trustees is certainly welcome and would be appreciated to help with collection development. So, and maybe that's what we don't order textbooks.
I think Mary just had a simple question.
For clarity, yeah. Can I just ask though, for clarity? Yeah, I don't understand the answer.
That's how you get books through collection development, regardless of who does it. That's how it arrived.
Mary, I think you have your answer.
So I guess my question though is this, okay? So I've ordered numerous books by James Baldwin, William Faulkner, Toni Morrison, Alvarez, like numerous works. And the response that I get is it's not part of the collection. How would I, not just as a member of the board, but a member of the community, how would I advocate that we expand that development, that opportunity to have more of a diverse collection to be available to us as patrons?
I'm not aware of a number of requests that have not been addressed.
Can I just chime in quickly? I think we're addressing a personal and a board matter in an unrelated piece. I think
and I'm looking at it as the patron asking, and I'm saying it would be the same, the exact same answer for anybody.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're not. I'm just saying I think the personal questions need to be addressed outside there. We know as a board that collection development is still a policy piece, but we held off on that for the strategic plan, and it's already 8 o'clock. This has already gone on a very long time. I think we need to address those, and we have a meeting agenda that allows us to dive into ideas and brainstorming around it. And I don't think today at 8 o'clock is the time to discuss collection development.
I agree.
That's what I just
no, I do think. And I do think that Mary was asking a very simple question, and there's no answer because it's not either Libby or it's not Overdrive. And so it's not going to get answered, and it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters, but I think Jen's right. You're going to have to maybe write an email to Jean and Molly and asking why that happens the way it happens.
I will do that. I will do that. Thank you.
The youth survey obviously is postponed until I don't know when, both for money reasons. The Phil Shea said he's still working. Now, that doesn't help me much. The library director requested funds from Friends funding. And I think we made it clear that we're not spending any money from the Friends at all until after we are reinstated. I am concerned that patrons are told that the Friends are not supporting the library, because that's what I was told, that patrons will be very upset if they found that out. I don't know how they would find it out, but the fact of the matter, we do support the library. We have supported the library. I can't answer the question about Jean's request for funding at this time. We said we weren't going to fund anything, and I'm very sorry. I did not get a chance to talk to Ed, but I did talk to Julie to see if she can do something to expedite Jean getting funding outside the Friends.
I would like to address this since I was the one that asked if you would put it on the agenda. I had told you to take it off the table. I had requested funds. Paula mistakenly said that they would be reimbursed. I said, that's all fine. That's in an email. I said, take that off the table. My question was, how long will it be? Because if I'm not going to be able to expect any funds from the Friends, then that's fine. I'm just asking for some sort of frame of reference. I won't bother asking if there aren't any funds because you're using them for other purposes. I just wanted to know if there's a time frame for when.
Well, first of all, I want to apologize. That was my error. And well, it was because I initially agreed to recompense Eugene, so I apologize for that. But the purpose in the statement, I think, at the March meeting was that we need to hold on to what is now $2,000 to see how much it's going to cost us to pay the accountant to rectify our tax identification status. So it's in hold.
Okay.
That.
So this is kind of an indefinite. I'm like, because we have budget cuts and all that, I'm just trying to get it. That's for. Okay, then that's okay. Because I've been asked for.
When we get reinstated as a Friends group, we will be able to do something. If we have any money left, we will be able to do something to be able to help. But I don't think it's right, from what I understand from Julie, that there's a way in the town to be able to meet some of those needs. Now, I don't understand how that didn't get clear, that we were not spending any money at all with the Friends until we got reinstated. We can't do it. The IRS is going to be the money that we're going to have to pay just the IRS alone. We see what we have, and then I don't know what we do. So we're not taking any risk at all at that.
Well, we have the further problem, Matt and Jean, in that we're not selling books that have been donated by patrons. So every month I would increase the amount in the bank account, and that's not happening.
Right. So
With the COVID.
Okay, that's fine. It was a mistake on my part. With budget cuts and freezes and all that, I was, anticipating that. And so I didn't think of that, as neither did Paula. So my question is, I said right in the email, I'll take it off the table. My reimbursement was not my concern. I was just wondering if there was sort of some open-ended date. So I'm seeing that there isn't, at which time I had asked if it could be reimbursed through the Norma Card Trust, and you said you would not support that, so I didn't put that on the agenda either. So it's fine. That's why I put it on here, is to just get some clarification on whether there would be funds available, and there aren't, and so that's fine. I will find other resources.
Good. Okay. The next meeting is June 3rd. I don't think there's any reason to have a meeting before that. I don't know, again, whether it'll be virtual or not, but I will ask you to please take a look at those tactics and action plan and decide which ones we want to send to Julie. And we'll talk about them as many as we need to at the meeting on June 3rd. Is there anything else right now? Or are we all set?
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Questions?
Okay, that would have been Suzette. And who seconded that?
Nan.
Nan.
Nan. C'est moi.
Nan did.
Okay.
Matt,
all
thank
right.
you so
Well,
much for
thank
this
you very
meeting
much.
tonight. Matt?
I thank you for all your hard work. That was a lot of hard work for a long, long time that people invested a tremendous amount in.
Yes, thank you.
And I appreciate Julie's understanding of that and her appreciation of that work. She's made that clear very many times. I think I'm very, very thankful for that.
Is the meeting on June 3rd? Is it at 6
June
o'clock or
3rd.
6:30?
Yes, we'll leave it at 6 if we're not back. Everybody's not back to work.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll do it at 6 if that's okay.
Yep.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I can't see you. Are you okay, Nan?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, good. All right.
I'm here.
Very good. Well, thank you, everybody. I got on the phone
Thank you,
with
Matt.
MDLC about getting this off. You're very welcome. Good night.
Yeah, and thank you for a productive meeting.